Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today we're diving into three New York Giants players who we think are going to take massive jumps in 2021 after having good or below average seasons in 2020. One of them is a rookie. Actually, two of them are rookies. We're going to go with Dexter Lawrence, who's going into his third year? Second year? Third year, right? Third year. Xavier McKinney is going to his second. And, of course, Darnay Holmes, our slot cornerback, going into his second year as well. So, two rookies, one third-year player. I'm pretty excited to jump into these guys because, ultimately, they make up a big foundational part of our defense. So, guys that Patrick Graham will utilize in 2021 as probable starters. And, especially with the Giants looking to retain Leonard Williams, maybe let Dalvin Tomlinson walk. Dexter Lawrence could take an even bigger role next season. And McKinney, he came on late in the year. We're going to talk about him taking a bigger role against Dallas in Week 17. And Darnay Holmes, he did deal with a couple of injuries, but he did go 6 games without letting up 30 yards or more, and he didn't let up a touchdown the entire year. So I'm really excited to dive into these guys. But before we do, Anthony, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing real good. These are players that have a really bright future, especially, the two guys in the secondary, I think, as they're going into their sophomore years now. Xavier McKinney and Darnay Holmes have very bright futures. Sorry for choking there. And I really like the way that the Giants have built the secondary together, and I think these are really nice foundational pieces that we can watch grow, and I think this year in particular we're going to see significant growth from them. And then, of course, from Dexter Lawrence, who's already a really solid player, one of the better interior defensive linemen in the NFL already after just 2 seasons. I think going into his third year, depending on what happens with Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson in free agency, I think that we could see maybe an even more expanded role for Dexter Lawrence going forward. Maybe they use him in a little bit more of some diverse, versatile ways, and we could see him really take his game to the next level. A really solid player that I'm a huge fan of, and overall I think the Giants, while they might not be the best team right now, these 3 core guys plus some others on the team, they've got a pretty bright future ahead. I
agree, and Dexter Lawrence, like you mentioned, could actually see an expanded role next season. He didn't play the most snaps than you'd actually expect him to. He played 60% of defensive snaps. That was actually down 3% from his rookie season in 2019. I found that to be interesting, why they actually decreased his snaps in his second year. But I think it was more because they were being really diverse with the way that they were operating on defense with Patrick Graham. And Leonard Williams took a lot more snaps with Anthony. Do you have any idea why they might do that?
I think it's because they wanted to make him a 2-down lineman. He was a 2-down lineman, and I think the Giants just had – it depends on how many third downs the Giants had defensively this year, and that's what would affect that slight discrepancy. But he is a 2-down defensive lineman, which was a criticism of him when the Giants drafted him. He's only a 2-down lineman. Why would you spend a first-round pick on a guy who only plays 2 downs instead of 3, right? But so that's a fair criticism, whatever, but – also, we've heard that he's been really trying to get his weight down to become a 3-down lineman, so maybe this year is the year that he gets that weight down, gets in better shape, more stamina, and is a 3-down lineman. So maybe we see that snap total increase, but that is the reason for only playing 60% of the snaps. I mean, 2 out of 3 is around 60%, so that's the whole reasoning behind that.
Yeah, so, I think he can be a 3-down lineman as well. He's a big boy. Sexy Dexy is a big boy. He's 6'4" and 342 pounds. That is a massive human being. And, to have stamina to play down after down after down in the trenches is not easy. It's not a simple task. So, if he can get that weight down just a tad, really get that stamina up, I think he'll be even better and actually might be an even better pass rusher. Dexter Lawrence attracted more double teams than any defensive lineman on the Giants, and was one of the top guys in the NFL in terms of double teams commanded. So that is pretty impressive from a guy who was in his second season coming out of Clemson. Now going into his third year, I think the Giants expect him to take a step forward. I think they expect him to be more of a pass rush threat. He only collected 4.0 sacks this year, but he was influential. 10 quarterback hits, 6 tackles for a loss. He almost doubled his stats when it came to sacks. So, it's really, really good to see him taking actual developmental steps forward. He has never missed a game due to injury. It's only been 2 seasons, but still it's good to see healthy interior linemen. Dalvin Tomlinson's never missed a game. Leonard Williams has never missed a game. And Dexter Lawrence has never missed a game. Having those guys, the continuity, the consistency of all 3 of them being on the field at the same time consistently is imperative to the Giants, their mentality and what they want to do. Building through the trenches, really having a strong interior presence. Rushing the passer, stopping the run. They had a top 6 run defense this past year. Their defense ended up in a top 10 range in terms of points allowed per game. Pass defense was the only thing that kind of was a little bit sketchy, mainly because of that lack of a CB2, and hopefully the Giants solve that this offseason. But Dexter Lawrence, man, he really is impressing me. He's one of those guys that's really gone under the radar in terms of the production everyone talks about. Dalvin Tomlinson, the contract, he's a free agent. Are we going to re-sign him? Leonard Williams, 11.5 sacks, 62 pressures. Everybody talks about these things, but the reality is Dexter Lawrence should not be forgotten about. He was just an integral part to this defense this past year, especially when it came to stopping the run and soaking up double teams and allowing, he was actually a big part in allowing guys like Leonard Williams to thrive because he's soaking up double teams. Dalvin Tomlinson soaking up guards in the center. That's really what opened up Leonard Williams to have 1v1 matchups and then expose those 1v1 matchups in the 3-tech, 5-tech outside and really attacking the quarterback, getting to the backfield and collecting those sacks. Not all of them were coverage sacks either, so it was pretty impressive. I think they're going to re-sign and if they try to keep that line the same, we're going to see them take an even bigger step forward this year, and I think that's probably what they're thinking. If we can retain Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson, we're only going to see that interior pressure, that interior defense excel and really take improvement, positive steps forward. That's what really entices me and why letting Dalvin is a big no-no. At the same time, he's probably the most replaceable of the three, so that's kind of the debate. Anthony, what do you think Dexter Lawrence's role is next year? And if they do let Dalvin Tomlinson go, do you think he'll be able to maintain this progress forward? And do you think keeping him is imperative?
Well, I think that continuity is key on the defensive line like it is on the offensive line. So ideally, the Giants want to bring back Leonard Williams and they want to bring back Dalvin Tomlinson and continue to play Dexter Lawrence in his 3-tech role. Having Leonard as a 3-tech, Dexter's a 3-tech, and having Dalvin play that nose tackle. Zero-tech role was very efficient for the Giants last year, and it's something I imagine they want to continue with. That continuity is key. So when you see these players develop together, it's no surprise that when Leonard Williams was traded for, when he came over here, Dalvin Tomlinson just started playing better. It's one less player that the defense really needs to key in on, right? Or that the offense needs to key in on. One less offensive lineman that's double teaming here. Instead, he's double teaming there. So that opens up more one-on-ones for Dalvin Tomlinson in both the running game and the pass rushing game. So having all those great players on the defensive line, creating all of those double teams and creating one-on-one matchups for all of these players on the defensive line is like the reason that the Giants had such a good interior this past season, that all those double teams just opening things up. Dexter Lawrence, you mentioned that he was definitely the most double teamed player on the Giants. He was double teamed very frequently in 2020, and that opened up a lot for Leonard Williams, right? Leonard Williams was able to get 11.5 sacks this year, a career high, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that Dexter Lawrence was soaking up double teams because he is just a ginormous human being. He's freakishly large, and so his power and force that he has behind his push, they have to double team him to do something about it. Going forward, though, if the Giants do lose Dalvin Tomlinson this offseason, then there becomes a really interesting debate. Do you find another nose tackle 0-tech to replace Dalvin Tomlinson, or do you move Dexter Lawrence to that 0-tech position? Personally, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. Keep Dexter Lawrence where he is, or replace Dalvin Tomlinson another way. I don't want to find his replacement on the roster because it's more nuanced than that, right? They play two different positions. Yes, all three of these guys are interior defensive linemen, but they play different positions on the interior. One of them lines up over the center, and the other two line up between the guard and tackle. There's a huge difference between playing between the guard and tackle and playing right over the center. And I don't want to necessarily just move Dexter Lawrence over to the 0-tech because he's our largest defensive lineman and he's, this ginormous person, because he plays really well at that 3-tech spot, and I want to keep him there. And I don't want him to be limited in his skill set just because we lose Dalvin Tomlinson in free agency. So ideally, to me, in that scenario, I'd rather just replace Dalvin Tomlinson with someone new who's not on the roster, maybe through the draft or free agency, and just keep Dexter Lawrence where he is, soaking up double teams on that side of the offensive line and continuing to play well and at a high level there.
Yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. If they're going to go with somebody different, it has to be someone who's a good run stopper who's going to soak up double teams to really help those 3-tech, 5-tech pass rushers. But the continuity, in my opinion, is also the most important factor when it comes to this interior defense. Dexter Lawrence, I think, was a phenomenal selection at 17. I think he's only going to get better, and that's kind of how I feel about this line right now. Like you can expect Dexter Lawrence to take another step. It might not be huge, but it could be a gradual step that ends up making him so much better that he collects 7-8 sacks. If he can be a 7-8 sack kind of interior defensive lineman, that would be amazing. That would be like exactly what we're looking for from him, and then pairing him with Leonard Williams, let's say they collectively have 20 sacks per year together, that's where we're looking at like, okay, like we got something here special. I think that's kind of where they see this going, and then messing that up is not really in the cards for them. And when it comes to saving money in Dalvin Tomlinson, what they could theoretically do is they could sign Leonard Williams to a big deal, and they could essentially, let's say, sign him to a 4-year deal. They could then convert salary into signing bonus, which would then prorate the rest, like some of that money to future seasons to lower the cap hit this year. That way they could fit Dalvin Tomlinson under the cap. There's a lot of creative things that they can do to make sure that Dalvin stays, and I think they really want him to. The question is, can they create enough money to sign him and a guy like Curtis Samuel or Corey Davis or Kenny Galladay? That's the big question. They can obviously push the money back to next season. They're going to have a ton of cap next year when a bunch of guys come off their rookie deals and whatnot. And a lot of guys are just expiring contracts, like Nate Solder and Golden Tate. They'll have a lot more money to work with because the dead cap hit will still have an influence this offseason once they do release them. At least that's what we expect they will do. But the next player on the list is Darnay Holmes. Darnay Holmes is a guy who we're going to do a film breakdown with later this week with Brian Walker, his personal trainer. D-backs Academy. He works with a lot of defensive backs, including Jabril Pepper, so he knows what he's talking about. We've done stuff with him in the past if you guys have been watching us for a couple months now. But Darnay Holmes really impressed me this last year in small sample sizes. He did finish the year with like 5 consecutive games with penalties. So that was kind of concerning to me. He did have some penalties, which is something you'll have to clean up. But I think it was just because of the quality he was playing against. CeeDee Lamb, these guys are really good. And, he had a couple holding penalties. It happens, some pass interference. But that just shows me he's really being aggressive. He's a very aggressive corner, very physical. But he has the work ethic to be a phenomenal player. Brian said he could be the next Chris Harris in the interior, slot cornerback. And he did go 6 games, like I mentioned earlier, 6 games without letting 30 yards or more. He didn't allow a touchdown the entire year. When he was on the field, it was clear that the Giants' defense was better than when he was off of it. They really were trying to supplement him with like Xavier McKinney and some other guys, and I just don't think it had the same presence at all. He was obviously the best option they had, and it showed. When he was on the field, they did better against slot receivers. Like, it was very clear. So I think, after a year of experience, he learned a lot watching the film, getting rid of those penalties, staying healthy is a big one. But I think, he's eager to help against the run. He can keep up in coverage. He's fast. He's quick. He's athletic. And he has that work ethic. The NFL genes are in his blood. He has those. So I think, his mentors are great. Deion Sanders is a mentor. Some really great people that are trying to help him improve. And I think, there's no reason for him not to become one of the best slot corners in the league. And I think as a 4th-round pick, that's an absolute steal. Anthony, what are you thinking about him for 2021?
Yeah, for Darnay Holmes, 52 targets this season, 0 touchdowns allowed. That's incredible. He's the only rookie defensive back to have 0 targets or 0 touchdowns allowed in coverage this year, which is super impressive. He played pretty well this season. He did have his growing pains. Those penalties that you mentioned, I consider those to just be growing pains. He was a rookie, 4th-round pick, so you can't set the bar too high. You can't have too high of expectations for him in his rookie season. But year 2, I definitely think he's a huge breakout candidate based on what we saw in the film. I think back to plays like against the Cincinnati Bengals when he broke on that ball, deflected it, and then Nico Lalos had the interception. I think of plays like that where you see a really instinctual player, a player that's good in coverage and knows how to break on the ball and make plays. He is a guy who makes plays, and I like that about him. He's aggressive, sometimes a little too aggressive, as we saw with those penalties, whether he's holding or it was a pass interference or whatever. But like I mentioned, I just see those as growing pains. From what I saw a really good young defensive back, and I saw somebody who I think can really hold down the Giants slot cornerback position for a while. And that's really exciting to me to find a guy like that in the later rounds. And when we talk to Brian, we'll have a lot of questions for him, and he'll give us a lot of insight on Darnay Holmes, and I'm really excited for that. And one thing that I'm curious to know is, will he be able to succeed on the outside potentially one day? If the Giants don't go for CB2 in the draft or in free agency, would they consider putting Darnay Holmes there? What do you think? I know that Brian thinks that Darnay Holmes could succeed on the outside, but I'm excited to get his reasoning behind it, what he really thinks about it, and why he thinks Darnay Holmes will be successful on the outside. Because I know that's what he did in college. He was an outside cornerback, so I'm excited to see if they do give him a chance there in the NFL.
Yeah, Holmes, realistically, I think he has the capabilities to be like a really, really talented interior, slot corner. And if they do give him that opportunity outside, which I think they should, I think that's reasonable. We've seen plenty of smaller cornerbacks thrive. Denzel Ward's one of them, right off the top of my head. Smaller guys that have thrived in the NFL. And I think Darnay Holmes could be one of them. It doesn't hurt to give him a chance. You know what I mean? Like
I'll say this. I don't think it's necessary that he plays outside corner. I think that slot cornerback is just as valuable as outside cornerback.
Yeah,
I just think that if the Giants desperately need an outside corner but feel like they have solid depth at slot, then let's see what he can do at outside corner. I think both are just as important, though, so I want to clarify that because I might not have made that clear enough. But I think that him being a really good slot cornerback is extremely important, so I hope that's what he continues to be. But the Giants have a severe lack of depth on the outside, right? Like, that's what we saw all last season, a revolving door. We saw Ballantyne start games, saw Ryan Lewis start games, saw Isaac Yiadom, and then Julian Love start games, all on the outside. So if we can find that continuity out there with one singular player, and if that player can be Darnay Holmes, I want to find out if it is Darnay Holmes, because maybe he is a really good outside cornerback, and maybe somehow he's better outside than he is inside. But him being very good inside is very valuable, and just as valuable as being good on the outside. So the position switch is not necessary to extract the most valuable or extract the most value out of him. But if the Giants cannot solve their CB2 problems, I do want to see them give Darnay Holmes an opportunity to solve it.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea of let's try him outside. I would prefer to have him in the slot. That's kind of how I feel about it. I think with the way the NFL is going, Anthony, you say this all the time, like slot receivers are arguably some of the best on the team, if not the best a lot of times. Look at Tyreek Hill, he plays a lot of slot. Juju Smith-Schuster, Adam Thielen. Chris Godwin, even Curtis Samuel plays 25%, 33%, in that 1/3 range in the slot. So he's an amazing, player to have in the slot who has low center of gravity. He can really match up against these more physical and gadget type players, or really even guys like Adam Thielen who are just elite red zone threats, and he can be that aggressive corner to lock them down. So it's really exciting to have a guy like that who has the upside to be like a Chris Harris and really that potential. So I hope that, the Giants can develop him and he becomes very talented and consistent for them. So I don't really care about him playing on the outside. I'd love to keep him in the slot. That's kind of how I feel about it. But at the same time, you have to think the penalties, the injuries, you have to be a little bit concerned about that. Are you worried about these injuries? Worried about maybe any inconsistencies that you saw in the penalties? Or do you think he's going to iron those out this offseason?
I'm not. I think it was rookie growing pains, those penalties. He just needs to learn. He needs more coaching. He needs to develop, and I think he will do that in year 2. The injuries, yeah, there's always concern with injuries. I'm always going to be concerned when a player gets injured and misses time, just because you don't want it to linger. You don't want it to be a consistent theme. I've even expressed my concerns with Daniel Jones potentially being a little injury-prone, missing at least 2 games in back-to-back seasons, right? So, yeah, I have some concern with that with Darnay, but, overall, it's like, going forward, you never know. Injuries are so random. Sometimes players get hurt, and then they never get hurt again. Sometimes they get hurt, and it lingers. Sometimes they just never get hurt. Eli Manning, right? So it's possible that it just doesn't become a problem again. But, yeah, it's something to monitor. Let's keep an eye on it and see what happens there, But I'm not too worried.
Yeah, I agree. The injuries I'm not too worried about. We could say the same thing about Saquon or Daniel Jones or basically a bunch of these players the Giants have been working with. So same concept goes around. Darnay Holmes, love the guy. He's a really great person, a really great work ethic. He has the genes. I think he's going to be just fine. I'm really excited to see how he takes a jump forward this next year. I think he's one of the guys that we have on the list that could take a massive developmental leap just based on his work ethic. He's going to be working all offseason. I know that. Brian's told us the guy, he has greatness. He has the mentality for greatness. So, I'm expecting it now. I've heard it from the source. But for the most part, the next guy, Xavier McKinney. He's a guy that we've been so high on. Everyone loved to see Xavier McKinney just ball out in Week 17, had an interception, almost another one. He had a couple tackles for a loss, bursting through Blake Jarwin. I think it was Blake Jarwin or Dalton Schultz, one of those guys. Bursting through them, much bigger athlete. And he just, he's tackling CeeDee Lamb in the backfield. He burst through a tight end to get there. Incredible power you see from a free safety. But really, he has the capability to play strong safety, move up to the line of scrimmage, rush the passer. Why Patrick Graham and Joe Judge like him so much? Because of that multiple aspect that he brings. He can play multiple positions. Let's say Logan Ryan missed a game, he could fill in at free safety. If Jabril Peppers missed a game, he could fill in at strong safety. We saw him fill in the slot. He can play cornerback. Maybe not at elite level, but at least, hold it down for the time being. He can do so many different things, and that gadget type of player in defense, that's kind of what they wanted to do with Julian Love, putting him at different spots, having an elite depth piece that gets put in just in case. But Xavier McKinney is similar in the way that he can play in multiple spots. And I love him in that facet, just growing. And the injury obviously set him back, and I think he'd be way further along without that that fractured foot he suffered in training camp last year. But that half season of time he spent on the field and learning the defense was essential for him, and I think it's going to catapult him based on that Week 17 performance. He's going to come out Week 1 firing. I'm really excited to see him. He's a ball hawk. He came from Alabama, pro-style defense. Patrick Graham loves him. He's having a guy from Alabama, the connections that the Giants have with them, they know what they got in Xavier McKinney, and he was a steal in the second round. I think he's going to end up developing into one of those feared defenders that teams do not want to throw the ball deep. They don't want to, they don't want to see him running in, trying to stop when he stops the run. He's kind of getting his sea legs in the NFL. I saw him kind of back away from a couple tackles early on. A little bit worried about his foot, a little bit worried about the contact, but I think once he gets settled in, which he did in Week 17, we're going to see him land some hits. We're going to see him feel comfortable getting into the game and really understanding, what his role is in this defense. Having guys like Logan Ryan around him, super beneficial. Like Anthony mentioned this before, like last episode, the trickle-down effect. Having good players around you makes those younger guys even better. And Darnay Holmes and Xavier McKinney are going to benefit from guys like James Bradbury and Logan Ryan and Jabril Peppers really setting the tone, and then just trickling down to those guys. What do you think about Xavier McKinney and how he's going to perform next season?
Well, Alex, I'm a huge Xavier McKinney fan. I have been for quite some time. I did that film breakdown over the summer, before we even saw him play for the Giants, before he suffered that really devastating injury. I did that breakdown, and I loved Xavier McKinney. I'm a huge fan of his game. I love the way that he plays. But there are some, I want to say, misconceptions about Xavier McKinney and his game. He's really not a free safety. He is a strong safety. He plays the role that Jabril Peppers plays. He just plays it a little differently. He's better playing in the box, playing man coverage on tight ends, and really helping in the running game. He's not really that guy. He's got good speed, but he doesn't have elite speed. He's not really that guy that you want to play free safety and just range and, be that rangy ball hawking safety. That's not really his game. He's better in run support. He's better, being utilized as a utility player in some ways, getting down in the box, playing man on the slot receivers. That's something I really love from him. It was against Texas A&M. When I did the film breakdown, I watched probably 6 full games of Xavier McKinney, every single snap. Texas A&M, they had a slot receiver, was demolishing Alabama. They moved Xavier McKinney into the slot. I don't even know if he had another reception. Xavier McKinney locked him down the rest of the game. It was freaking awesome. He really has that kind of man coverage ability when he gets down in the box, gets down, plays the slot role. So that's what I love about Xavier McKinney. And my ideal role for him in 2021 is going to be, let's continue with Logan Ryan at free safety. I really like what he was doing there. And then I think more exciting idea to me, of course we can talk about having a three safety package, in the nickel formation. That works as well, but what I want to throw out there is maybe Jabril Peppers. I want to see him play more money backer. I want to see him more truly in the box, playing a linebacker role and having Xavier McKinney play that safety position. I think that's the way you get the most speed on the field, you get the most coverage ability on the field, and you get the most talent on the field that way. And I really like that idea. I like that role for McKinney and for Jabril Peppers. I was just looking on Twitter at Xavier McKinney, stuff, so I can bring up any relevant statistics that might have slipped my mind. And I saw a certain beat writer, I won't say names, mention that Xavier McKinney is on the roster so that maybe they should cut Jabril Peppers because
who the hell
my
said
faith
that?
My faith in humanity was lost once again. Cutting Jabril Peppers because you have Xavier McKinney is so nonsensical because really, I get that I just said they play very similar roles, but really, if you're in 2021 and you have Patrick Graham and you can't figure out how to utilize 3 safeties at the same time in this NFL, then you don't deserve the job. And Patrick Graham can figure out how to utilize 3 safeties, which is why he has a job and why he's very good at the job, right? Utilizing 3 safeties is not like some bizarre otherworldly thing. That's very much a feasible task, and Patrick Graham will continue to do that. They will, all 3 of them, be very efficient this year. But Xavier McKinney, you mentioned it. Week 17 had that breakout performance that I was waiting for. I knew he would. He struggled a little bit in those other games. He was very limited. They were really just easily trying to work him in. They started working him in initially as a QB spy against Seattle. That was his first game back. They had him playing that QB spy role, and I thought that was interesting, because he is a very instinctual player, very smart. really can read the field, can read the quarterback. And I thought that was a really good way to ease him into the lineup, and I'm really happy with the way that they did that. But then as they started to play him in that more safety role in Week 17 against Dallas, and you saw him make plays downfield, you saw him have a pick, right? He had a pick that got called back. He broke on the ball instantly on an out route. Beautiful play. Instinctual. Like I said, great play recognition, like we saw from him in college. Then he had that interception at the end of the game. Maybe that was a gimme. You can say that, but the ball skills were there. He still made the play. It was kind of like a Hail Mary. But yeah, he had the proper position and he made the play. And then he had that play, where he blew up that tackle in the backfield on CeeDee Lamb. He had a few plays like that. And he had a few plays like that games prior. Like, that's what he's so good at. He's very aggressive. He comes downhill and lays down a hit. He bulldozes through blockers sometimes. He's such a good run support guy. And I love that about him. But he also has that, like, coverage ability. Like, he's so versatile. And he's really already one of my favorite players on the Giants, just purely before he even played for the Giants. He was one of my favorite players on the Giants, purely because of what he did at Alabama. And I thought he was so exciting. And I just can't wait, with another year of experience under his belt. Let's work him through the offseason. Hopefully he gets a real training camp this year. Hopefully the Giants and every NFL team gets a real training camp this year. Who knows with the COVID situation. It seems like, if Dr. Fauci and everything that I'm hearing is correct, right? If what they're saying is true, hopefully by August, we really should have a training camp because the vaccine will be distributed by then. That's what we're hearing, right? So hopefully we get the training camp. I know Roger Goodell said they're planning on having some altered offseason again, but we'll see. Hopefully we can see Xavier McKinney have a nice training camp. No injuries, please. I pray to God that he doesn't get injured again. And then get that extra coaching in the offseason through the training camp. Get into that regular season. I think that we're going to see him really take a huge step this year. Alongside Peppers and Logan Bryant, we could see arguably the best safety trio in the NFL, and I just can't wait to see that.
Yeah, Xavier McKinney, man, this kid is something that we should be watching. I really think he's going to have a huge impact in 2021. Like Anthony said, 3 safeties. You got to be able to utilize that. That's Patrick Graham's bread and butter. He knows how to utilize them, dropping back into disguised coverages, rushing the passer, matching up against tight ends with those big bodies. That's kind of how I think it's going to go. They're going to be really diverse, really creative on defense, and that's why they're going to be a top unit. And now they know the system, they know the verbiage. It's only going to get better. Their consistency is only going to get better. I think keeping them the same is the priority for Big Blue. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Fireside Giants. Make sure to hit subscribe below on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. All the love you guys are showing. We want to, give back to you guys. Let me do some live streams soon. Get that going. Maybe this week we'll do one at night and just talk about a couple scenarios, mock draft, get your guys' input. So that sounds like something cool that we could do. But as always, thank you so much. We will catch you guys on the next video.